Welcome, everyone. My name is Natalia Galanin. I'll be your host today. And I'm very happy and delighted that you managed to join the third webinar, which will be run by Molgajata Mroz. Molgajata is a teacher trainer. She's a member of Macmillan Education teacher training team. She's also Cambridge Wiley examiner. And her professional interests, they lie in teaching young learners CLIL. Am I right, Gosha? Yeah. In implementing formative assessment and lexical approach when teaching higher levels. And today, you'll learn how to plan for maximizing fluency. Gosha will be talking about how to use songs and chants, because we all know that songs are not just an extra activity. It's probably one of the most important ways for children to gain probably fluency, and because they can see all the phonological features of the language when they hear songs. Then Gosha will be talking how to use dialects effectively and how to help our young learners to master their pronunciation. So, Molgajata, over to you.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. The first thing I saw in the chat window was "let's do it." So let's do it. Let's kick off. I love this one a lot. So just a quick question: if everyone can hear me, if we have a good connection, yeah, excellent. We can all hear each other. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for having me here, and I'm glad to be meeting you for the third time in this series. Not the last time. We have already had two webinars, and one was on lesson planning in general and some key principles. So for those of you who attended, welcome again. And also we had another webinar which was about planning reading lessons, and we talked about the lesson with a red bus going around London, and we talked about how to plan reading long term, but also in one lesson, like throughout the course and so on. And today we're changing the topic, but we're still going to be thinking of it in the context of planning a lesson. And today we will talk about fluency and how to support our students when they're on their way to becoming more fluent. And that will be the main focus. I will show you some examples, as always. I will give you some ready-made ideas, and as always, at the end of the webinar, after the webinar, you will get a handout from us in which you have a sample lesson plan for the lesson that focuses on fluency. So this is like a gift from us, and also some exercises will be described step by step. And also we're having the third webinar now, but I also already want to invite you to the last one, which will take place in, I believe, 3 weeks, but I would have to double check that. I'm sorry. In which we'll be talking about emergency and what happens when something goes wrong and what we can do, how we can be prepared to that. So I'm also already inviting you to the next webinar. But today we focus on fluency, and we're, as always, in a very international group. I see hi Tatras. I used to go there as a child a lot every year, and I used to hike a lot. So I'm very happy to see it, but also many other places. So as always, we have teachers from all around the region, and I'm more than happy to be part of this event. I'm currently speaking to you from Hamburg, from Germany, so we're expanding the borders, yeah, so let's kick off then. And I'd like to start with a question. What does it really mean to be fluent in a foreign language? Because we tend to use this term fluency, we want to work on fluency, but I always like with these terms, which are quite broad, I like to think about them. I like to give them more thought and think about what it really means. Because we use these, it's just like with naming levels. We use A1, A2, B1, B2, and so on. But sometimes we're aware of what it means, but it's good to clarify it. So we have some answers to think in that language and react correctly. Yes. To speak and make pauses naturally. Yeah. To dream in the language. Yeah, that happens sometimes. It happens to me. I speak 3 foreign languages, but it only happens to me in English. I never spoke any other language in my dreams, but hopefully, hopefully one day it will happen. to be able to express oneself. I think this is a very important one. To be able to say what we want, not only what we can, if you know what I mean. And this is something I work a lot of with my students. But one of you, also Marina, mentioned that we must feel comfortable when we speak. And I think this is also very important. We're not stressed, right? We can express ourselves and we can take a deep breath and like be relaxed and communicate our ideas, our needs, our observations, and our opinions, and also understand them. So this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, because as you know, of course, you can start learning a language when you're a little bit older, like me, for example, but you can also start as a child, and that's what we do. We start with little children, with young learners, and this is the best moment to start and to support our students while we want to make them more fluent. We want them to become more fluent. So let me start with a short anecdote, because every time I think about teaching languages, I also think about learning languages, because I'm a keen learner of foreign languages. It's my hobby, and I do it a lot. And I tried a lot of languages. Usually I just scratch the surface and then I switch to another language, because everything is so fascinating. I want to know all the languages in the world. So about a half a year ago, maybe a little bit more now because time flies, I moved from Poland, from Warsaw, which is where I was born, to Hamburg in Germany. Now, I don't speak German. I didn't speak German when I moved, so it was a completely new thing for me, like new surroundings, new language. I couldn't really understand much. For those of you who speak German, you probably understand why the words are very long and you cannot make any meaning out of them if you don't know basic words, which the long words are made of. So I've been here for over half a year, which is quite a lot of time. And because I live here, usually I get these questions. So do you speak German yet? Like, say something in German. How do you say this and that in German? Do you speak German with your friends? Like, how's your German? I get so many questions like that. And I have to admit that sometimes it's quite frustrating, because let me reveal my biggest secret. I don't speak German. I still don't speak German. But I'm thinking that this question, these questions that I get that come from a good place, don't get me wrong, they all come from a good place, but they frustrate me because I feel the pressure. I feel I should already speak German. I feel I should be able to say more, but I can't. And I'm thinking maybe I'm too lazy. I don't know, there are so many reasons. And I believe these questions are exactly the questions that, I see some other people living in Germany too. High five. So I believe these are also these questions that our students get very often. For example, from their parents. So they often get questions like, after English lessons, like, so do you speak English yet? Say something in English. What did you learn today? Say it in English. How do you say this and that in English, right? Do you speak English in the lesson? Do you speak English with your friends? Look, there's a person here. They don't speak your native language. Can you speak English to them? So I feel that the way I feel about these questions is exactly the way my students feel about those questions that they get from their parents, maybe their family, their aunties, uncles, I'm sure you got these questions at some point. Sometimes I even ask these questions to my family members, and I felt so bad because I don't think they should be asked. And there are many reasons for that. Now, I was thinking about the reason it's so hard for me to learn German. And I think one of the reasons, like the biggest reason, is that there's a lockdown. Now, I am in Germany, but I am all the time at home. Now there is this new rule. I cannot leave my home between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. So meeting people is not really an option now. And I don't really get the chance to interact with people. We're all wearing masks. I cannot, observe the face, the movement. And also I cannot really hear people very well. Like even in a shop, when they ask me questions, would you like to pay with a card? I don't know, it's hard to hear it, So I don't really get the chance to interact. And another thing is that also the people that I do interact with, because don't get me wrong, I did meet some people despite the lockdown. Normally, these are people from all around the world, not necessarily native German speakers. There are some native German speakers, but they treat our friendship as an opportunity for them to speak English, so they can benefit. So we normally speak English, and also because we want to talk about meaningful things, we use English because it's just easier, because my German is basically naming objects and colors. But many of them are from all places around the world: Chile, Brazil, Turkey, Syria, Ukraine, France, right? Like all so many different places, and they're not the native speakers of German. They do speak English very well, though. And this is something that I started to think about because, and I had a lot of conversations with fellow teachers about their students who, let's say, master certain things more quickly than other students. And also I was thinking about my experience with learning English, but also learning Armenian, which I speak fluently, and also, learning foreign languages. And usually we come to the conclusion, I also ask my friends who are not teachers, friends from different parts of the world, we usually come to the conclusion that we're all very much into the music, and we're keen on music. We listen to the music all the time. And when I was a child and a teenager, I loved songs. I sang a lot. I learned to play the guitar just so I could sing my favorite songs. And I believe that music is something. Now, I don't know if it's scientifically proven, so don't get me wrong. This is just my opinion here. But to my experience, both me and also the people that I interact with who speak English on a very high level, they always say, I've learned it from songs. I've learned it from movies. I've learned it from from different, aspects of my life, also at school. But this helped me a lot. Songs helped me a lot, and interacting with people helped me a lot. Being an expat helped me a lot. And I'm sure we're all keen on music, and so are our students. So at the moment, currently, I'm running a small test. I got a playlist from a friend of mine with a Polish friend of mine with his favorite German songs. And I don't like the music that much, but I keep listening to these songs because I want to check if that helps me with German, because I really do believe in the power of using songs in learning a language. And it works for me. I don't know if it works for everyone, but I'm sure it works for many people. And some of you also say it in the chat window that music helps a lot. Also reading, movies, of course, so many things. And on top of it, our lessons, right? The way we teach our students, we give them the solid base for, exploring the language on their own. So today we're going to talk about planning lessons and using songs and chants and also dialogues and also pronunciation patterns that you have in the book. I'm going to use some examples from the Academy Stars course to develop our students' fluency. So all of these things that you have mentioned before. And I'd like to start with an example. This is, I believe, level 2, Into the Wild. And this is the song I'd like to use as an example. Now, the target language of this unit that I'm going to be using as an example is, when it comes to vocab, animals, and countries, and this is what we start with. Also, after this lesson, there are grammar lessons, and then we've got there are some, there aren't any. So this is our target language. Now we're going to focus on the words, animals, and countries. This is our main focus because grammar comes a little bit later in this unit. Now, before I move on to some ideas I'd like to share with you, just a quick reminder, because some of you have already attended some of the webinars, some of you maybe are here for the first time, and I'm also very happy for you to be here. And don't worry, everything should be clear for you. I'm not going to be referring to past webinars, but just for a moment, when we talk about planning lessons, there are these parts of our lessons that we should usually, there are these things, these steps that we should usually implement in our lessons. So I have some hints for you here, and I wanted to ask you about number 1. What's number 1? What do we usually start our lessons with? And I see that some of you are already, okay, so you already have answers for number 1 and number 2, but yeah, you're absolutely right. So usually we start our lessons with the warm-up, whatever you call it, right? So we need to get the students in the classroom in this mood for studying the language, for learning the language, for using it. We need to warm them up. And then number 2, we have the warmer. And then we have, yes, exactly, revision. Now, I am a big fan of revision. I always have at least a short revision step in my lessons. I cannot really imagine my lessons without the short revision part. Sometimes I put these two together and I have warmer plus revision. And also in the sample lesson plan that you'll get after the webinar, it's also revision and warmer as one step, because there's no reason you shouldn't connect them, right? You don't have to, but you can. Okay, number 3. What's number 3? This might be a little bit more tricky. Any ideas for number 3? Let's lead in, context, control. Yes, the word I thought about is actually context, but I do believe that lead in is also like, it's kind of the same thing. Like we introduce the topic, right? And we want to set the context because this helps our students feel comfortable and more confident because they know what they're doing. They know we're talking about playgrounds, and they their mind is there, so it's easier for us to to create some activities, and also they feel better because they feel more confident because their imagination has already taken them to the playground, right? So it's easier for them to make these links, make these connections, and so on and so forth. And we have the fourth step. Maybe someone can guess it. It's 2 words. Okay, so we have practicing communication, conclusion will come at the end, yes, but not quite. Communication, yeah. So what I call it here is controlled practice. So I believe that because we are going to, now we're talking about the beginning of the lesson, all right? Of course, there are some other steps that follow, but I do believe that it's good to have at least a little bit of controlled practice, even if our plan is to practice fluency, because we need to work a little bit on accuracy so our students have the tools to use in the fluency stage, the fluency practice stage, right? So we need to support them a little bit. Sometimes, of course, you might have one lesson which would be, focus on controlled practice, and then there's a very short stage with fluency, and then in the next lesson you continue the topic and you get like the short revision with accuracy practice, with controlled practice, and then you focus on fluency, right? So I believe controlled practice, even if very short, should be a part of a lesson, even if the lesson focuses on what we're gonna talk about more in a moment, free practice, right? Which I call step 5, free practice fluency, right? So I would like all of you to remember that even though we'll be talking mostly about fluency, there also are the steps of the lesson, and lessons have these structures, and of course we can be flexible with the structure, but it's good to keep in mind that there are some things that should be there, like warmer revision, blend them together if you wish, establishing the context, and also a little bit of practice to give our students the tools to practice fluency. So in this session, we're going to talk, as I said, about using songs, using dialogues, using pronunciation patterns. And we're starting with songs. And do you remember a couple of slides ago, you saw the target language of the example, the sample lesson I'm going to show you. Do you remember what the target language was with vocabulary? There was this grammar, there are some, there aren't any. What was the target language? What was it? Animals into the wild. Yeah, some of you work with these books, so you know them by heart, I'm sure. Animals and countries. Yes, exactly. So let's have a look at the song that comes in the first lesson, and let's see if you can spot the target language in the song. So animals and countries. I'm sure you can see it. But for those of you who maybe haven't worked with these books or this level of Academy Stars, maybe you see it for the first time, so just have a look at it. We have some target language already, right? I think we can all agree. So we have some animals. We have wolves and bears and crocodiles and a panda. It's also my favorite. No, it's my second favorite animal. A fox would be my favorite. And we have countries: India, Russia, China, Australia. So we also have. So you see, we already have this target language here. Now, it's not everything, because except for the target language, we also have some other things here. And this is exactly how I work with songs and how I encourage you to work with songs, because I believe, of course, they're great. We like to sing them. I see the lyrics, and I already have the melody in my head, because there's a word for that in German, Urwurm or something like that, which is like something like the melody that gets stuck in your head, and like this eat, you cannot get rid of that. But there's also so much more. Right? So, which phrases from this song do you think can be used in our students' everyday life? Because let's be clear about that. They're not very likely to say zoom around the world in their everyday situations. This is just the fun part of the song for the melody. But yes, you see, there are so many other phrases that can actually be used in many contexts and also in everyday situations. Welcome to, Can you see? Welcome, listen, right? And over there, right? My favorite is, you see, these phrases are like, they use them all the time. Oh, hopefully, right? Or at least we want them to use them in other contexts too, right? Like, for example, listen, I want to say something, or I don't know, there are, right? Also target grammar here. So let me show you some phrases that I would like to focus on in the activity that I'll show you in a moment. So the first phrase, what animals can you see? It's already quite a long question, and songs are perfect for drilling longer structures because they have the melody and they have, like we sing them, right? So it's easier for our students to learn longer structures. And this WH question is quite a difficult one if you think it's level 2, right? So what animals can you see? And another one, I can hear wolves and bears. Oh, I think I skipped one. Sorry. Can you see a kangaroo? Yeah, sorry, I jumped ahead. So what animals can you see? Can you see a kangaroo? Can you see this and that, right? Can you see something? Can you see me, right? Can you see the teacher? And so on, so forth. And also, I can hear wolves and bears. I can see the sun and the clouds. I can hear Kasia and Basha, right? I can hear the school bell and I can hear children, you see? So, so as you can see, another phrase, very versatile. And also one more that I took, look, I think there's a camel over there. This whole phrase, look how long it is. I think there's something over there. It's really long, but it's so nice. It sounds so natural, doesn't it? Look, I think there's a bus over there. Right? Oh, look, I think your mom is over there, right? So this is something that our students could also use in their everyday language. So to wrap it up, so we have these 4 phrases. What animals can you see? Can you see a kangaroo? I can hear wolves and bears. I think there's a camel over there, right? Still, this is the song. And mind you, at this stage of the lesson, I assume that we've already sung the song a couple of times and my students are already familiar with the lyrics and they can already sing, at least sing along. If not karaoke, they can sing along. All right, so this is the assumption because this is not the first stage of the lesson. Okay, this is the fluency practice. So in my lesson, that would be stage 4-5, right? After the warmer, revision, intro to context, and a little bit of practice. So the first thing I do with my students, I take these phrases. Now, I don't take all of them at the same time, but look here, these 4 phrases allow me to make some shorter dialogues. So one student, I put them in pairs, and one student says, what animals can you see? Or can you hear? Because we can also switch the verb. Why not? Right? What animals can you see? What animals can you hear? And the other student replies using the phrase, the line from the song. I can hear, I can see, depending on the verb in the question. And then they give their answers. Right? Now, they don't use answers from the song, they use answers from the class. And now you can approach it in different ways. You can, for example, ask the rest of the class to pretend to be animals, right? And the first student says, what animals can you see? And while other students are miming animals, the second student goes, I can see, and now, well, there might be many animals in the classroom, maybe a cat, a snake, like, the sky's the limit, really, right? Or the first student could go, what animals can you hear? And then the second student, they close their eyes and they have to listen while other students pretend to be other animals. So, for example, they close their eyes, and now I'm going to make some sounds. So I hope I'm sorry for that, but you can hear, for example, ee-aw, ee-aw, which would be a donkey, or you can hear, which is a snake, or you could go, right, which is a pig, or you can go meow and woof woof, and like so many sounds that kids love making sounds, right? Don't they? So, so you can also use it in the warmer stage, right? You can play with some sounds, so then it's easier for students to recall them and to use them, right? Or in this activity, you can also use flashcards. What animals can you see and hear? And the second student gets flashcards and say, I can see a panda, or I can see a camel, depending on the flashcards you give them. And you can use the flashcards from this unit. You can also use a flashcard from level 1, where they also learn some farm animals, for example, right? So it's great for this really, really big revision, right? So you could also see that. One of you asks, Alžbeta asks about online teaching. Well, you can show pictures in the screen. And the student A goes, what animals can you see? Then you share your screen, you show the flashcard, and the other student says, I can see or hear ta 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 ta. Or you can ask your students to turn the microphones on, like maybe one student at a time, because otherwise it's maybe too much noise. And what animals can you hear? And another student goes, right? And it's a pig, right? So you can also do it online. Like it is, maybe it requires a little bit more planning, but you can also do it online. Another thing, let's take some other lines from the song. Can you see a kangaroo? I think there's a camel over there, right? So here, again, the first student gets, for example, a flashcard, and they go, can you see a panda? The other student looks around the class. Now everyone stands still, right? Which is not so easy because normally they try to stand still, but go like, right? So, but they're supposed to stand still. And then the second student points to one student and says, I think there's a cat over there. And this student, towards which the second student points the finger, has to pretend to be a cat. And then they switch roles, right? And then they take turns and so on and so forth, right? So again, you can use flashcards here. You can just use students. What I sometimes do with my students is, and they love it because they like me to like, I sometimes do funny things and they always laugh. And I have kind of like no problem with being sort of like the clown sometimes. So the first student says, can you see a panda? And the other student points to me and says, no, I think there's an elephant over there. And then I go, woo, and I make the sounds. And then, they can laugh at their teacher, like in a friendly way, of course, and a respectful way. But they also love it. So there are many variations here. You can also use puppets if you have them. You can use, maybe not realia. I mean, if you have a chance to bring real animals to your classroom, I envy you. I dream of these classrooms. But you can also, put them on the screen if you have a projector, if you have the interactive whiteboard, and so on and so forth. And also remember that you can use these fragments from the song, which is about animals, to talk about other things, right? You can use it for revision. And you can go, what fruit can you see? And the other student would go, I can see. And for example, everyone opens their lunchbox and say, I can see some bananas. I can see an apple, right? Or if you have the school shop or like a small school shop or a school canteen, maybe you can go there, right? I sometimes walk my students around the school if I get a chance to do so. Not nowadays, but usually I'll do it. And you can do it, right? And also, I know that now we mostly teach online. I know not everyone with young learners, it really depends on the country, but sooner or later, hopefully sooner than later, we will get back to physical classrooms. So remember that even if it's a little bit more difficult, more challenging maybe to do these things online, and it's maybe not that exciting, at some point we will get back to classrooms and these ideas will stay with you. All right, so please keep it in mind. But of course, if you do it online, you can just share your screen, you can show some pictures, you can prepare a file or use interactive flashcards that you also have with the course, right, in the on the website or in the app. And also, you can use it to talk about places around town, for example. Can you see the cinema? You can have a map for that, and you can have a physical map. You can have a map from the book, find a picture with buildings. Or you can use, I don't know, I often use these internet maps, like Google Maps or something like that. Can you see the cinema? No, I think there's a bus stop over there, right? So, and now this is the fluency part, because our students, not only do they learn the song and sing it, they take what they learn from the song and they use it in different contexts. And you can make these contexts, you can personalize them, right? And I'll show you some more personalized activities in a moment. Yes, you can also use it for jobs. You can use it for everything, really, because these phrases from the song, can you see, I think there is, I can see, hear, I can smell also, maybe I can feel, and what can you see, we use them all the time, right? So so that's exactly why I love using songs for fluency, because they give me phrases that are longer, that might be challenging, but because it's a part of the song, because they get stuck in our heads, children can sing it, and then we just switch some words, and that teaches them to do it in other contexts. All right. So what I love about these activities, and as you can see, very simple, very low prep, also time-wise. I love these activities, because they give me the opportunity to first have my students cooperate. And I do believe in cooperation more than I believe in competition. I don't like my students to compete too often. Sometimes they have to. It really depends on the class. Sometimes they compete against me, because there I can control, the winning, losing part. But also this activity helps me revise the vocabulary from previous units, also previous years. If this is grade 2, I can take some vocab from grade 1, right? But I can also, for those of you who attended the previous webinar, I can also use it to pre-teach some vocabulary for reading, right? And teach the students to speak. And I really believe that speaking is extremely important, because that's exactly why I don't speak German, because I don't get a chance to interact, right? And also, I believe this activity creates this very good habit of using song fragments in speaking. Because, the songs we learn in lessons, this is just one thing. But then there's a whole world of other songs. And then my students listen to their favorite songs, and many of them are in English. And then they have this good habit of taking what's in the song and using it in real life or in the classroom, which very often we try to make it resemble the real life, right? Now, that's one thing, but let's take the same song, and one more thing about this song. Which part of the song can be easily adjusted to revise or to learn new names of countries and animals? So let's get back to the context of our lesson for some time. We had, I believe, 4 names of countries. I want more, because I have a very strong group of good students, and I think that some country names are maybe similar to their native language. So why not use it as a chance to, to introduce some more countries, some more animals? So which part of the song do you think would serve this purpose? We've got 4 parts. The first, zoom around the world, then welcome to Australia, then India, Russia, China, and then but my favorite is in China. You can probably take many parts. The one that I usually choose is this one. But my favorite is in China. Listen, crunch, crunch. I can see a panda. It's having lunch. And I choose this part because I think that here, if you change the name of the country and the animal, they don't have to rhyme. Even if they don't rhyme, it's still a good phrase. So my example, because I live in Germany, I'll go with, but my favorite is in Germany. Listen, crunch, crunch. I can see a snake. Is having lunch. I also think that, this crunch, crunch is kind of like, most animals would make some sounds when they eat. So crunch, crunch can, like also in cartoons, right? If you have a snake, it goes like, right? So, but my favorite is in Slovakia. Listen, crunch, crunch. I can see a cat. It's having lunch. But my favorite is da 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 da. So you can also put the name of your country here. And this is the moment when you can get students to be very creative. They can make posters. They can, try to make up some funny combinations, right? And also, but my favorite is in Ukraine. Listen, crunch, crunch. I can see a crane. So they can search for rhymes also. And you see, this already requires a lot of effort. So highly recommended. I think it works just fine. So you can just take one line of the song and use it to, to add some more vocab. And look what happens. Our students, they have to think outside the box, right? They have to think, like use their memory, use their imagination. They can also take risks here. They can, for example, maybe they would say, but my favorite is in Ukraine. And then you can correct, because Ukraine, it's similar. Then you can correct, say, Ukraine, right? So but they can take risk and use the name of the country in their native language, because maybe they're very lucky and maybe it's the same, right? For example, in Armenian, many countries are named like they are in the native language, the language spoken in this country. So not all of them, but many, right? So so that's what you can do here. And also, one question here, let's stop for a second. How to make sure that students recall the names of different countries and animals? Because, this is like, of course, they can take risks, as we've just said, but how to make sure that they don't just go, no, but I don't know any countries, right? Do you have any, like, how can we, or like, I don't remember any animals. We can have a map, yes. We can use some realia or some materials to support them. Pre-teaching. That's exactly what posters also, but pre-teaching is something that I really wanted to stress, because you can use the first steps of your lesson to pre-teach some vocab. So in woman revision, play an animal game. Put flashcards with different countries on the floor, make students run between them, right? Pretending to be different animals. Print out some flags or show them on the screen, right? And let's also use some clue. Why not? I'm a big fan of clue. So let's teach them flags. And if you have a look, so remember, because this is just one stage of the lesson, but we're talking about lesson planning in the series. So remember that before you get to step 5, or the number might change, but this step in which you practice fluency, you also have warmer revision, context, and also controlled practice, right? Even if very short. So this is the moment when you can actually do it, right? And if you have a look at some other songs, just some examples before we move on to dialogues. I can see, but I don't know what to do. You can just take this phrase, but I don't know what to do, but I don't know where to go, but I don't know where to look. So you can say, oh, look here. Oh, but I don't know where to look. Or, for example, what else? Houses, shops, and buildings where we go every day. Living room where we watch TV. Bedroom where I sleep, right? So many things you can do here, really, right? So I encourage you to explore the songs and not only use them for target language, but also exploit them, take more, because in songs, in every song, you'll find useful phrases that you can play with in your lesson, and they would support, encouraging, they would encourage our students to take risks, to use them, and also hopefully, because as a plan, improve their fluency. All right, so let's move on. We've talked about songs. Let's move on to dialogues. Now, as you know, in our books, there are many dialogue patterns. So I chose this as an example. Where are the paintbrushes? They're in the blue box. Where are the pencils? They're under the book. Where's the orange paint? It's next to the pencils. Oh yes, thank you. So students, they listen to these dialogues and they repeat, then they act out. They can also watch a video in which they can see children acting out these dialogues, which I also do with my students. You can also, mute the video and ask students to give the voice to the video. Many things you can do here. Now, I want to go one step further, because I want to drill the dialogue. I do believe in drilling too. So I want my students to use the dialogues, but my primary aim is not for them to memorize the dialogue, but to use it as a pattern for other things, right? So it's almost like a template that they have, and then they can have a very same dialogue in a different context, because this is fluency, right? Speaking freely. In this unit, the context is, when it comes to vocab, playground. So you have swings and merry-go-round and slides and so on. Prepositions of place, right? In, on, under, next to, and so on. And some functions practice. So ask and say where things are. So questions, right? Now, have a look here, because this is lesson 6. So it's after vocab, grammar, and so on, or also reading. The context of this unit is vocab, in terms of vocab, is playground. But in this exercise, we already changed the context. It has been changed for us in the book, because here we don't use objects in the playground. We use school objects, things like crayons, rulers, yellow paint, pens, rubbers, green paint. So you see, the first step has already been done for us. We take the target grammar, which is prepositions of place, and asking where and saying where things are. And this is what we're practicing here, right? But we already, in the book, they've already changed playground to school objects, right? So that's the first thing. Now, because here we're talking about school objects, I want to take it out, from the book to the real life, to the real world, to the classroom. And here's what I do. My students, in a physical classroom, my students close their eyes and I walk around the classroom. Now, normally they close their eyes like that, but I don't mind really. It doesn't matter. And I walk around the classroom and I hide some of their belongings, right? So I take one pencil, I take one crayon, right? And so on. Now you have to be very careful because you have a big class. If you have a big class, you have to remember where you hide things, all right? So then everyone gets their belongings back. So be careful with that. Maybe 3 students at a time, maybe. So when the time's up, my students open their eyes. They need to find out what's missing from their belongings, if anything, because maybe you just took things from 3 students out of 30. And they have to ask where it is, right? So this is where I use the dialogue pattern from the book and make it a little bit more personalized, because I'm taking my students' personal belongings. So, for example, teacher, where's my shoe? I sometimes steal shoes because it's funny and students normally laugh when I take off their shoe. And then I go, your shoe. I don't remember. Kids, where's Sophia's shoe? And this is where they can use this target language and go, it's in the blue box. And then I look in the blue box, go like, no, it's not here. Where's Sophia's shoe? Look how much drilling. And then they go, it's under the book. No, it's not under. Where's Sophia's shoe? And look, there's so much language. They hear me repeating the question. Sophia gets the chance to repeat the question, but where's my shoe? Where's my shoe? And the students, like the big, even if you have a very big class, they practice prepositions of place, right? So sometimes they find it very quickly. Sometimes I put shoe, like it can be anything else really, behind the curtain, under the desk, right? In different places, and they have to walk around the classroom, find it, and so on. Right? So, and of course, you can do it with many objects. I also let my students hide some of my belongings. Now, the belongings I have on my desk, because I don't want them to go through my bag. Like this is like, the line we don't cross, right? But sometimes I put my pen, my shoe also. And for example, I don't know, like I put things I have on me on the desk, and then I ask them to hide them, and we switch roles, right? So students can also hide one another's objects, right? So the sky's the limit here, really. Now, I love this activity because, again, I get my students to cooperate with each other, with one another, and also compete against me. And it's kind of like they're really into this activity because they can take my shoe and hide it. Now, it has never happened to me that I had to leave my school barefoot. It has never happened. I always find my shoe. Sometimes, because, they're kids, they're so clever. They come up with once they put my shoe on a lamp, because we had these flat chandeliers. It really took me a lot of time to find it. For a moment, I was even worried, but eventually I did find it. So, they chuckle so much when I can't find my shoes, and I go like, oh no, how can I go home? I have no shoes. Where are my shoes? Are my shoes under the lamp? And because I use it as an opportunity to maybe introduce more prepositions of place, maybe between. Why not, right? They don't have to learn it actively, but they can learn it passively. They can hear more prepositions of place. Maybe they remember, right? Even if it's not our target language. Now, also, if possible, as I said before, I like to take my students for a walk around the school, and sometimes we'd go holding hands, or just in the line going like, where's the canteen? I don't remember. I'm so sleepy today. I can't remember anything. Where is the canteen? And then the students have to take me to the school canteen and say, it's next to the library. Right? Or even if you say library in Polish, biblioteka, even if they say it's next to biblioteka, it's okay, because what I want them to practice here is the prepositions of place. This is my target language, and I want them to become more fluent using the prepositions of place. Because then in real life, even if they say it's next to and point the finger, it's also fine, right? They're taking chances, they're taking risks, and that's exactly what I want from them. And all of these things, they all start with one dialogue. You see, this is my starting point. I've drilled it, I've practiced it, we've mimed it, we've given our voice, and then I go out from the book to the real world, right? So that's what I do to help them practice fluency. So I know that they don't just read the dialogue, they have to use it and I challenge them by making them use the dialogue in different contexts, and very often, if possible, in personalized context. So so that's what I do. Just one short break. Yes, I do speak Russian a little bit, not as well as I used to, but I do speak Russian. Right, now the next thing I want to show you, the last thing I want to show you, is using pronunciation patterns, right? So we should probably, before we move on to the exercise, start with a short question. How important is it for you and how important is it for our students, for your students, to have the perfect accent and pronunciation? On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 absolutely unimportant, 10 crucial. How important is it for our students to speak with this perfect accent? Oh wow, we have everything arranged from 3 to 10. And there are different opinions. Like, I think there's no correct answer here. There are different opinions. People have different approaches. There are different, approaches in teaching. And I think all of you, you're all right, but mid-importance. Oh, 2, from 2 to 10, everything. All right. I believe that the perfect accent and the perfect pronunciation is not that important. Now, don't get me wrong. It is to some extent important, but I don't think it should be the most important thing, and I don't think people should have perfect pronunciation. I actually, personally, it's my aesthetic choice, but I'm a big fan of people, native speakers of French, having French accent in English. I think it's the most adorable thing in the world. And I also believe that our accent and our pronunciation is such a big part of our identity. We don't necessarily have to force ourselves to get rid of our native accent. But does it mean that we should stop paying attention to pronunciation, like, at all? Now, no, of course, because sometimes bad pronunciation can stop other people from understanding. And so I do believe that teaching pronunciation is important. I just don't think we should be too obsessed with it and focused on it. I think it should come as a fun activity. We should draw our students' attention to certain things. We should teach them that different sounds, like, you know about minimal pairs. Sometimes one sound changes the meaning. In Polish, at the end of the word, if you have a voiced consonant, we devoice it, right? So, for example, a Polish native speaker, when they see the word bed, they're very likely to say bet. Now, bet is something different than bed, right? Or we also have we don't have many vowels in Polish, really. So we don't have long, short vowels. So bed and bad, same thing for a Polish speaker, right? So sometimes, as you know, making mistakes here, especially with minimal pairs, can be confusing. But I'm not too stressed about that, because very often we can figure it out from the context. So, of course, yes, I believe we do have to teach pronunciation, but also relax a little bit about that. If our students do not speak with a perfect British accent, I don't speak with a perfect accent. So as long as their message is clear and can be understood, I have no problem with that. And also, pronunciation made it to the saying in English. I don't know if you know the saying, potato, potato. Have you ever heard about that? Potato, potato is something that you say in English when the difference over which we may be arguing is really unimportant, right? Like potato, potato, right? Also, there are so many words they can pronounce in different ways. Tomato, tomato, right? I always say tomatoes. Most of my friends here say tomatoes. So, there are differences between British, American, Australian pronunciation and many, many other, like Irish, Scottish, So many differences. But sometimes the mistakes can be funny. And just to give you an example, I have a friend here, and he's a native speaker of German. And he has a problem pronouncing the sound th. And he very often, instead of saying I think, and we talk a lot about important things, so we often share our opinions. So this I think, in my opinion, I think, happens very often. He says I think. And I think his accent is absolutely adorable, but I had to get used to it. So, because, normally when he says I think that you're not right, it's okay, I understand it from the context. But if he said the sentence, when I go swimming, I usually sink a lot. Now this, can be a little bit confusing. Now, it wouldn't be that much confusing to me because I already know him and I know that he says "se" instead of "the," and I kind of like my ears got used to that. Just like with my Chilean friend who very often says "b" instead of "v," and he says "berry" instead of "very" because of his native language, which is Chilean Spanish. So these things I kind of had to get used to it too, and it's possible to get used to them, and people would normally understand. But sometimes the mistakes can be a little bit confusing and a little bit funny. So let me show you an activity based on pronunciation patterns, in which I'll show you how I do it with my students to help them, because pronunciation is a part of being fluent. I believe that we should not be too stressed about it, because even if the mistakes are a little bit confusing, like think, sink, I think if you talk to someone, you can really figure it out from the context. You can really get used to that. And also, for example, in YL exams, these mistakes, as long as the examiner can understand the student, the examinee, these mistakes are ignored and the points are not subtracted. So we have this chant, right? Oh, what a voice, said the boy to Joy, but oh, what a noise, thought Roy. All right? So normally with my students, if you play the recording, I love these recordings because first you have the whole chant and then you can, repeat it with your students, and then the person reading the chant omits some parts, and then the students have to say which part has been omitted. So for example, oh, what a voice, said the boy to Joy, but oi, thought Roy. And the students have to say, what a noise, because this part was skipped, right? So we do a lot of this, and sometimes we also add some movement to that. It's a chant, so we can also clap our hands, pass the ball, and something, or something like that. Now, if you want to work a little bit more on pronunciation, here's what you can do. I prepare just some pieces of scrap paper, or if online, I do it in a presentation or on the screen. I search for other words that have the same combinations of letters that are read in the same way. Now, as you know, in English, it's not always the case, and I'm going to show you in a moment. So I add words like toy, choice, soy, poison, ahoy. And then my students, some of these words, like the word toy, they already know it, but they don't know the word soy and poison and choice. They've heard it, but So I show them that they can already read the words they don't know just because they pay attention to these letter combinations. So then what you can do is you can replace the words in the chant with some words I give them. For example, oh, what a toy, said the boy to Joy, but ahoy, what a noise, thought Soy, because Soy, maybe it could be a name too, or you can just make some ridiculous combinations that are funny, because then they go like, oh, what a voice, said ahoy to poison. Doesn't make sense at all, but here we're focusing on pronunciation, therefore it doesn't have to make that much sense, maybe, if you do it for fun. But also, if you want to make it a little bit more difficult, what you can do is you can add some words which are kind of similar. So, for example, you have soy, but also say. You have ahoy, but also hey, right? So you can play with different letter combinations. And here I use different colors, but in my class I would use the same color, like white, because it's scrap paper, for flashcards. And then the students, they have to decide which words they can read. Now, as you can see, the trick here is the word tortoise, because it's not tortoise, it's tortoise, right? So even though we have OI, the spelling, the spelling is the same, but the pronunciation is different. And as you know, it happens quite often in English. You know this poem, like maybe if you're familiar with this poem, which combines words that are written in a similar way, but read totally differently, right? So I love this activity because A is very simple, B is very low prep, but also my students can observe some pronunciation patterns, especially with letter combinations. They can drill some common sounds that maybe don't exist in their native languages. And they can also notice that there are no strict rules. Now, in many languages, German included, you learn the rules of pronunciation, you can read everything. The same in Armenian, you just learn the alphabet, you can read everything. Same in Polish, and I believe in many Slavic languages, and not also like French, Spanish, I guess. Like there are no exceptions really. Now, English is different. English is a combination of so many languages back then. So there are so many words that just, like thorough, the word thorough, right? Or the word, bear, but beard. right? So they're written in the same way but pronounced differently, and this is what I also want my students to be aware of, because sometimes there will be exceptions. And there's one more activity I'd like to show you, which I call mumble dialogues. One of my favorites when it comes to pronunciation. But this time we don't focus on sounds, we focus on intonation. Because I believe that this is something that is even more important than single sounds. Because while applying good intonation, we can already give so much information, whether it's a question, whether we're angry or happy or laughing or curious or, I don't know, sleepy, and so on and so forth. And in English, the intonation is quite strong. If you listen to English speaker, native English, well, everyone who speaks English really, like, for example, in Polish, and maybe in many Slavic languages, I don't know, but like in Polish, we just speak like that. Everything is flat, and you can say, I'm so excited, I've just won $1 million. And you say it like that. You don't say, I'm so excited. We don't do that because it sounds ridiculous in Polish, but it sounds good in English, right? That's how people speak. So we have this dialogue. Where did you go last night? I went to a party. Who did you go with? Blah, 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 right? We have the whole dialogue. What I do is I take a part of it in which I have the sentence, I ate some cake, the question, what did you drink? And the longer sentence, I drank some orange juice, I wish there was a party every day. And what I do is I cover my mouth, and I mumble the sentences, like these three, one of these three. And my students, they have to guess which sentence I'm saying. So for example, if I go, that's the question. What did you drink, right? So what did you drink? Because it's a WH question, the intonation goes down, right? Or for example, so I wish, you see, I drank some orange juice. I wish there was a party every day. You know, when kids are excited, they prolong the sounds, right? So that's what we do. So let's give it a try. Here I've got 4 sentences, which I took from the same unit, but from one of the previous lessons. It's from the reading activity. I'm going to mumble a sentence, and your task is to tell me whether it's number 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now, of course, you can see that some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, but you can see how much you can play with intonation here. So are you ready? I guess you are. Let me mumble the sentence. Okay. Sorry, it's always funny. I love doing that. Which one was it? Yes, I was sad and I was saying, they don't want me, I'm very old. Excellent. Okay, let's try one more. Yeah, I love my donkey. He can live on the farm with his friends, right? But you can also go, for example, the donkey is old. I want a new donkey. You can be a little bit, angry like this. Like, right? And then you got number 4. So you see, and then of course your kids do it. And you can have so much fun here, and you can take literally any sentence from the book. Right? Maybe you can take some patterns from previous dialogues, so you can also revise it a little bit, right? And also you can drill them. You can drill dialogues. So one child goes, and the whole class says, they don't want me, I'm very old, right? And so on and so forth. So a very simple activity, 0 prep, and we're wearing masks now, so maybe you can put on masks, right? And it can help your students notice the pronunciation, observe the intonation, think about the intonation, right? So there's a lot of thinking involved. And apply intonation rules in various sentences, not only affirmative, but also if the sentence is about something positive, so you're happy and you prolong some words, or negative, and then your voice might be a little bit lower. And also creating the link between the sound of the sentence and the meaning, right? So if I go, I'll probably say, I am sad, or I'm so happy, or I'm hungry, So you can do this. So to sum it up, before we all say goodbye, just a couple of words. So first of all, I really want you to remember that we focused on only one stage of the lesson, but when you plan the lesson, please do plan warmer, because this, when you plan the whole lesson, you have the fluency stage, and you know that you will need some extra names of countries and animals. You do it in warmer revision, right? So please do remember about that. Remember to introduce the context with which you can then play. You can change it. You can go from playground to school objects, but remember to do it smoothly, to make links, and so the students, they feel safe. Right. And also remember about maybe at least a little bit of controlled practice. Right. Remember, like, before you use fragments of the song, remember to drill it properly so the students are already familiar with it. They can say some lines without thinking. And also remember to plan ahead, because that's something I talked a lot in the previous sessions, and I also will talk a lot in the next session, because that helps you find appropriate examples of language in previous lessons for mumble dialogues, for some dialogue patterns. Maybe you want to use some old chant from 5 weeks ago to practice fluency in another unit, because why not, right? The kids already know the chant, they love it, was their favorite. Let's take their favorite chant then, or their favorite song. And it can also help you plan vocab and grammar chunks that you wish to revise or practice, because many of these fluency activities can be used for revision too. And also remember that in good books, in good courses, and I believe Academy Stars is one of those. It's one of my favorite courses. I love it because it's so full of resources, and it's basically ready-made, really. Remember to use what you have. Remember they also have the teacher's book. Remember they have many ideas in the game bank and so on and so forth. But also don't be scared to go beyond the book. Take what you have, take the song, go beyond it. Take one chunk of the song, turn it into a dialogue. So I'd like you to remember about these things, and I really hope you enjoyed the ideas, you like them, and I really hope you find them useful in your lessons. And I encourage you to use them. And I believe the session is recorded, so feel free to rewatch it anytime. You will also get the handout from us with one lesson planned that focuses on fluency. And some of these activities, not all of them, but some of them will be described there step by step with timing and some comments. So thank you very much. That's it from me. It was a pleasure as always, and I really can't wait for our next webinar, which will be about having plan B. So what shall we do when something goes wrong, when we have prepared this excellent lesson plan and something goes wrong? Everyone, like, all our students are in a bad mood and they don't want to cooperate. And what do we do, right? What shall we do? So we're going to talk about it in the next session. And I'm inviting all of you, and really can't wait to meet again. And for now, that's it from me, from a very stormy, very rainy city of Hamburg. So thank you very much, and thank you for having me as a speaker.
So thank you, Gosha. Thank you very much for your inspiring talk. And thank you, dear participants, for your active participation. So the following up email will be sent to you shortly with the certificate and the worksheets. As Gosha mentioned, on the 23rd of April, we will be happy if you join us on our 4th online masterclass. So you will learn how to be flexible with your lesson plans if needed. So thanks again. So the session was recorded as usual. So if you need the recording, please contact your local Macmillan representative. So thank you very much. Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.